Look what I found in the attic. Amanda's voice rang through the house as she bounded down the stairs, holding my mother's antique jewelry box. My heart stopped. I watched my sister-in-law wave around the mahogany case my mother had treasured for 30 years, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the delicate lid. My name is Julia Bennett, and at 34, I never expected to be standing in my childhood home, watching my brother's wife of 2 years pawing through my late mother's most precious possessions. These must be worth a fortune, Amanda gushed, pulling out a pearl necklace. We could get so much for these at that new auction house downtown. I kept my face carefully neutral, years of dealing with Amanda's entitled behavior coming in handy. Those were my mother's, I said quietly. They're not for sale. Amanda rolled her eyes, tossing her highlighted hair over her shoulder. Come on, Julia. Your mom passed away 6 months ago, and these are just sitting here collecting dust. Besides, she added with a smirk, since James and I are living here now, technically everything in the house belongs to us. My brother James, who was absorbed in his phone in the corner, didn't even look up. He changed since marrying Amanda, becoming increasingly distant, especially after our mother's death. The house had been left to both of us. But somehow Amanda had convinced him they needed to move in to maintain the property. I took a slow breath, remembering my mother's words from years ago. Patience, sweetheart. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people think they've won. Fine, I said, watching Amanda's eyes light up with triumph. Do whatever you want with them. Over the next few weeks, I watched through social media as Amanda posted about her vintage jewelry collection and scheduled appointments with appraisers. Each photo she shared made my heart ache, but I kept my mother's secret close. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Julia. Amanda's voice was sharp with anger. The auction house says these pieces are worthless. They're all high-quality costume jewelry. How could your mother have such fake stuff? I smiled into the phone, picturing her outrage. Oh, did I forget to mention, Mom loved collecting costume pieces. She thought they were fun. But what about her real jewelry? The diamonds? The emeralds? Everyone knew your mother had an amazing collection. Did she? I asked innocently. How interesting. Amanda's frustration exploded. Don't play dumb. Your mother was wearing a fortune in jewels at my wedding. Where are the real pieces? I thought about the hidden safe in my apartment, the one containing my mother's actual collection. I remember the day she'd shown me, 3 years before her death, how she quietly replaced every valuable piece with an identical costume version. My darling, she'd said, I've watched how that girl looks at my things. We'll let her think she's clever, but we'll know better. I have no idea what you're talking about, Amanda, I replied calmly. But hey, at least you can keep whatever you make from the auction. Consider it a gift. She hung up with a screech of rage. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from James. Amanda's upset. Why are you causing problems? I stared at my brother's message, thinking about how he'd changed since meeting Amanda, how he'd stopped coming to Sunday dinners, missed Mom's last birthday, barely made it to the hospital before she passed, how he'd let his wife take over our childhood home without a second thought. My mother's voice echoed in my memory. The real treasures aren't the jewels, sweetheart. They're the memories we keep safe from those who don't deserve them. I texted back, no problems here. Amanda got exactly what she wanted. Looking at the safe in my apartment, I smiled. The real show was about to begin, and Amanda had no idea she played right into my mother's final plan. The fallout from Amanda's failed jewelry auction was just beginning. She'd already bragged to her entire social circle about the incredible vintage collection she'd inherited, even hosting a pre-auction viewing party at our childhood home. Now, those same friends were sharing knowing looks and whispered comments about fake jewelry and inflated claims. I sat quietly in my apartment, organizing authentic pieces in my safe. Each item told a story. The sapphire pendant Mom wore to my college graduation, the diamond bracelet from her 30th anniversary, the emerald earrings that had been in our family for generations. But the most valuable piece wasn't the jewelry at all. It was a simple envelope tucked beneath the velvet trays. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from Amanda. You must know where the real jewelry is. This is so embarrassing. My reputation is ruined. James says you're being spiteful. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the upcoming board meeting for our family's charitable foundation. The one Amanda didn't know existed. Mom had established it years ago, funding it with the proceeds from selling some of her most valuable pieces. The foundation provided scholarships for underprivileged students, something Amanda would have never appreciated. 3 days after the failed auction, I received an unexpected visit from my father's old lawyer, Mr. Harrison. "Your mother was quite clever," he said, settling into my living room chair. "She knew exactly what would happen when she replaced those jewels." I nodded, pouring him tea. "She saw through Amanda from the beginning. But why didn't she tell James?" Mr. Harrison's eyes crinkled sadly. "She tried, Julia, but your brother was unreceptive. That's partly why she structured the foundation the way she did." He pulled out a folder, spreading documents across my coffee table. "The house isn't just jointly owned by you and James, it's tied to the foundation. Any resident must contribute to its management and participate in its charitable works." I felt a slow smile spread across my face. "And let me guess, Amanda has no idea." "None whatsoever. The annual participation requirement deadline is next week. If the house's residents don't comply, they'll have to vacate," I finished, understanding dawning. "That's why Mom insisted I take that nonprofit management course last year." Mr. Harrison nodded. "She knew you'd understand the importance of the foundation's work. The jewelry Amanda so desperately wanted. Your mother sold most of the real pieces years ago to fund scholarships. What you have in your safe is just a small portion, the truly sentimental pieces." Just then, my phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. "I know you're hiding the real jewelry somewhere. I'm going to tear this house apart until I find it." I showed the message to Mr. Harrison, who shook his head. "Perhaps it's time to deliver the foundation documents." "Not yet," I replied, thinking of my mother's patient smile. "Let's wait until the deadline. After all, Amanda's so busy looking for non-existent jewels, she probably wouldn't have time for charitable work anyway." Over the next few days, I watched through our security cameras as Amanda frantically searched the house, tearing through closets and cabinets, even pulling up floorboards in her desperate hunt for treasure that wasn't there. James remained oblivious, too absorbed in his phone and his work to notice his wife's increasing obsession. What they didn't realize was that every day they spent hunting for jewelry was another day they weren't fulfilling their obligations to the foundation. The deadline was approaching and Mom's plan was working perfectly. I received one final call from Amanda, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Julia, darling, I've been thinking. Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot. Why don't you come over for dinner? We can discuss the jewelry situation like family." "That's an interesting offer," I replied, fingering the foundation documents on my desk. "Actually, I've been meaning to discuss something with both of you as well. How about next Thursday?" "Perfect," Amanda exclaimed, probably thinking she finally wore me down. Little did she know, Thursday was the foundation's participation deadline. As I hung up, I looked at my mother's portrait on the wall, her knowing smile seeming to shine with approval. The real gems in her legacy weren't the ones Amanda was so desperately seeking. They were the lessons in patience, wisdom, and karmic justice she left behind. The stage was set for Thursday's dinner, and I had a feeling it would be a meal Amanda would never forget. Thursday evening arrived with a perfect dramatic flair, thunder rumbling in the distance as I pulled up to my childhood home. Amanda had set the dining room table with Mom's best china, clearly trying to create an atmosphere of family warmth. If only she knew what I had in my briefcase. "Julia, darling," she trilled, air kissing my cheeks. "I made your mother's famous pot roast recipe." I noticed she was wearing an obviously fake diamond necklace, probably trying to maintain appearances. James sat at the head of the table, finally looking up from his phone with interest. I suspected Amanda had promised him this dinner would solve everything. "Before we eat," Amanda said, sitting down primly, "I thought we could clear the air about the jewelry situation. I know we got off to a rough start, but surely we can come to some arrangement." I opened my briefcase, pulling out a folder. "Actually, I do have something to discuss." "I knew it," Amanda exclaimed, clapping her hands. "You're finally going to tell us where the real jewelry is." "Not exactly," I said, sliding the foundation documents across the table. "These are more important than any jewelry." James picked up the papers, his eyes widening as he read. For the first time in months, I saw my brother, really saw him, emerge from behind his wall of indifference. "The Bennett Educational Foundation," he read aloud. "Established by Elizabeth Bennett, mandatory resident participation, annual charitable requirements. Amanda's face shifted from confusion to horror. What is this? Mom's real legacy, I explained calmly. The house isn't just property, it's part of a charitable foundation. Anyone living here must actively participate in its management and contribute to its charitable works. Today was the deadline for this year's participation requirements. This is ridiculous, Amanda sputtered. James, tell her this can't be legal. But James was still reading, his face growing paler. The foundation provides scholarships, funded by the sale of family assets, including the jewelry collection. Mom sold most of her real jewelry years ago, I explained, watching Amanda's face contort. The pieces you found were high-quality replicas. She used the money to help underprivileged students attend college. That was the real treasure she wanted to preserve. But what about the pieces she wore to my wedding? Amanda demanded. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a small jewelry box. You need these. I opened it to reveal the stunning diamond and sapphire set Mom had worn that day. The only real pieces she kept. She left them to me with specific instructions. They're to be sold next year to fund a new scholarship program. James looked up from the documents, tears in his eyes. I remember how excited Mom was about starting a foundation. She tried to tell me, but I was so busy, so caught up in me? Amanda shrieked, jumping to her feet. This is insane. We live here now. You can't just force us to run some charity. Actually, I said, pulling out one final document, according to these residency requirements, if you haven't participated in the foundation's work by today's deadline, you have 30 days to vacate the property. The thunder outside punctuated my words perfectly. James set down the papers, looking at his wife as if seeing her clearly for the first time. All this time you've been hunting for jewelry, he said quietly, when Mom left us something so much more valuable. Amanda stormed out of the room, leaving her untouched pot roast behind. James and I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of Mom's legacy settling around us. I've been an idiot, he finally said. Yes, I agreed, but reached across to squeeze his hand. But Mom planned for that too. There's still time to get involved with the foundation, just not while living here. Over the next month, James and Amanda separated. She moved out, and he found an apartment nearby. He started attending foundation meetings, slowly reconnecting with the brother I'd missed so much. The house was converted into the foundation's headquarters, providing a space for scholarship recipients to meet, study, and receive mentoring. Mom's costume jewelry collection was displayed in a case in the entryway, along with a plaque explaining its significance, a reminder that true value isn't always in what glitters. Sometimes, when I'm working late at the foundation, I swear I can feel Mom's presence, her patient wisdom still guiding us. She knew that some people would always chase after jewels and riches, but the real treasures were in the lives we could touch and the good we could do. As for Amanda, last I heard, she was trying to sell her story to a local magazine, something about being tricked out of a jewelry fortune. But anyone who knew my mother knows the truth. She left us the most valuable inheritance of all, a legacy of helping others and the wisdom to know what really matters.